There are moments in your life that act as hinges. They're often quiet, seemingly insignificant. A door opens, a door closes. You make a choice. You answer a phone call. You say yes instead of no, and your entire world pivots on that single, silent movement. You never see the hinge until you're looking back, usually from the ruins of whatever life you had before. For me, that hinge was an app on my phone, an icon of a smiling, cartoon sun holding a little cartoon hand. Guardian Link. It sounded so safe, didn't it? Like a promise. A digital hand to hold when you couldn't be there yourself. It all started on a Tuesday. I remember the oppressive grayness of the sky that day, the kind of weather that feels like a heavy blanket. I was a single dad, which is really just a fancy way of saying I was the full-time CEO of a tiny, chaotic, beautiful corporation of two. Me and my 8-year-old daughter, Maya. My life revolved around her schedule. School pickups, soccer practice, playdates, parent-teacher conferences. I was the master of a color-coded calendar that looked like a Mondrian painting gone haywire. That particular Tuesday was a big one for me. I'm an architect, and after months of late nights and lukewarm coffee, my firm was on the verge of landing the biggest project of our careers, a new city library. The final presentation was that night at a dinner with the city council. It was a command performance. Not showing up wasn't an option. And naturally, that was the day Mrs. Gable, my sitter, my rock, a woman in her 60s who had the patience of a saint and smelled perpetually of lavender, called to cancel. Her car had broken down, stranded 2 towns over. I remember pacing my kitchen, phone pressed to my ear, a cold knot of panic tightening in my stomach as I frantically called everyone I knew. All busy, all with their own lives, their own chaotic calendars. The walls were closing in. The clock on the microwave was mocking me, each red digit a countdown to professional failure. That's when I remembered what my colleague, Sarah, had told me about a few weeks prior. Guardian Link? I could almost hear her voice in my head. It's amazing, David. Like Uber, but for childcare. All the sitters are 5-star rated, full background checks. It's a total game changer. At the time, I privately thought it sounded impersonal, but now, desperation was clawing at my throat. I downloaded the app. The interface was clean, friendly, bright colors, smiling faces. I put in my request, a last-minute long shot, but within 5 minutes, a cheerful chime sounded, and a match popped up. Her name was Emily. Her picture showed a young woman with kind eyes and a warm, open smile. She had over 100 5-star reviews, all glowing testaments to her kindness, her magical way with kids. Her profile said she was a grad student in early childhood education. It was too perfect. A little voice in the back of my head whispered a warning, but the loud, panicked voice of the ambitious architect drowned it out. I booked her. She was scheduled to arrive at 6. At 5:59, my doorbell rang. I opened the door, and there she was. Emily. She looked exactly like her picture, dressed in a simple sweater and jeans, a large tote bag slung over her shoulder. She had that calm, capable air about her that instantly puts a frantic parent at ease. "Hi, you must be David," she said. "It's so nice to meet you. And this must be Maya." My daughter was hiding behind my legs, but Emily knelt down and spoke to her on her level. "I love your dinosaur t-shirt. Is that a stegosaurus?" Maya shyly corrected her. "It's a triceratops." Emily smiled. "Of course it is." "My mistake. He's my favorite too." And just like that, the spell was cast. Maya was charmed, taking Emily by the hand to show her her Lego castle. I gave Emily the tour, the emergency numbers, the Wi-Fi password. She listened intently, asking smart questions. Bedtime is at 8:30. She can have 1 juice box. No scary movies. The knot in my stomach finally, blissfully unwound. As I was leaving, I looked back at them setting up a board game on the floor. It was a stock photo of a happy home. I should have seen it for what it was. Not a stock photo, a stage. And it had been set just for me. The dinner was a blur, and I excused myself twice to check the app's live feed. The first time, I saw them playing checkers at the kitchen table, Maya laughing. The second time, they were curled on the couch, Emily reading from one of Maya's favorite books. I sent a quick message through the app. Thanks for taking such good care of her. You're a lifesaver. A minute later, a reply. She's a sweetheart. We're having a great time. Focus on your meeting. I put the phone away, nailed the presentation, and drove home around 11:30, buzzing with victory. The house was dark, except for a single dim lamp. I let myself in quietly and found Emily asleep on the couch. I gently woke her. Oh, David. Hi. Sorry, I must have drifted off. I told her not to be sorry. I was the one who was late. She said Maya had been an angel. Went down at 8:30 on the dot without a peep. I paid her through the app with a generous tip. At the door, she gave me that same warm smile. It was a pleasure to meet you both. I hope you'll call me again. Then she was gone. I crept upstairs and peeked into Maya's room. I could see her shape under the covers facing the wall. I didn't want to risk waking her, so I just pulled the door almost closed and went to bed, feeling like I had dodged a bullet. It was the last peaceful sleep I would have. The next morning, I went to wake her. Time to get up, sleepyhead. The room was silent, too still. The lump under the covers was just a careful arrangement of pillows. The bed was empty and perfectly made. Maya never made her bed. A cold finger of dread traced its way down my spine. Maya? Honey? Are you hiding? I checked her closet, under the bed, then raced downstairs, searching every room. The house was empty. My hands were shaking so badly, I could barely unlock my phone. I went to the Guardian Link app to call Emily, but her profile and our entire booking history was gone. It was as if she had never existed. That's when the panic, true ice-cold panic, finally took hold. I dialed 911, my voice trembling as I told the operator, my daughter is gone. The next hour was a surreal nightmare of uniformed officers asking questions I couldn't answer. A call to Guardian Link's corporate security confirmed it. Emily's profile was a sophisticated fake, a ghost account that had been scrubbed from their servers the moment the booking ended. I felt the floor drop out from under me, and then a thought surfaced through the fog. The cameras, not their camera, my cameras. I'd installed my own security system years ago, recording to a hard drive in my office. We all rushed in and pulled up the footage. There it was, me leaving, Emily and Maya playing, me arriving home, Emily leaving at 11:45 p.m., alone. Maya was not with her. If she didn't take her, then what happened? The officer had an idea. Let's go back. Let's watch the whole thing. We sat in the dark office and watched the ghostly replay of our evening. We saw Emily lead Maya upstairs at 8:30, then come back down alone and sit on the couch, scrolling on her phone, just waiting. Then, at 10:23 p.m., the front door opened, and Maya walked out. She was in her unicorn pajamas, her bare feet silent on the cold concrete. Her face was blank, her eyes open but unfocused, staring straight ahead. She didn't look scared. She looked empty. She walked down the driveway and onto the sidewalk, then turned right and just kept walking until she disappeared into the darkness. She never once looked back. One of the officers pointed a shaking finger at the monitor. Look, he rewound the footage. Reflected faintly in the dark glass of the living room window was Maya's bedroom window upstairs. And in that window, standing perfectly still, was a silhouette. It was Emily. She watched my daughter walk out of the house. She watched her walk away into the night. And she did nothing. The chilling, unthinkable truth settled into my bones. She didn't kidnap my daughter. She had convinced Maya to leave on her own. The world tilted on its axis. How do you issue an Amber Alert for a child who walked away willingly? My mind was a screaming chaos. I ended up in Maya's room, and that's when I saw her tablet on the nightstand. I picked it up, my thumbprint unlocking it. There was an app I didn't recognize called the Starlight Garden. I opened it. It was a link to a YouTube channel with hundreds of videos, cartoons, puppet shows, all looking bright and cheerful. I clicked on the most recent one, a special message for new blooms. A soft, gentle female voice began to speak. "Hello, Starlight. Are you ready for a new adventure?" It was her. It was Emily's voice. I felt the blood drain from my face. The voice was hypnotic, talking about a secret world, a magical place where special children, the blooms, could be with their true family. Your guide, your guardian, will come to help you on your journey, the voice cooed. When the moon is high in the sky, it will be time to start your walk. It was brainwashing. She hadn't just met my daughter last night. She had been grooming her for weeks. The babysitting job was the final activation. I showed the police. The FBI was called in. My house became a command center. They discovered a global network, a cult calling themselves the Family of Light, using these videos to liberate children. All I could do was sit there, helpless, knowing I was the one who downloaded the app. I was the one who opened the door. I had paid her, tipped her, and thanked her for stealing my child's mind. The hours bled into days. Finally, they traced an IP address to a remote, mountainous region a few states away. An agent showed me a satellite image on a laptop. It was a wooded area with a small clearing. A compound. "We think this is it," he said. "This is the Starlight Garden." I just stared at that tiny dot on a map where my daughter was. The hinge had swung shut. My world had pivoted, and I was left in the ruins with nothing but the silent, ghostly footage of my little girl walking away, and the terrifying knowledge that the monster didn't have to break down my door. I had invited her in and smiled while she did it. Most people think a writer's greatest tool is their imagination. It's not. It's observation. It's the ability to sit quietly and watch the world, to notice the little things. The way a person's smile doesn't quite reach their eyes. The tiny hairline cracks in the facade of everyday life. My name is Alex. I'm a writer. And for the last year, my subject has been my neighbors, Mark and Sarah. I work from home, from an office window that looks directly into their kitchen. I didn't mean to become a voyeur. It just happened. Mark was the star of the show, the one every neighborhood has. Perfect lawn, brand new grill, always organizing the block party. He was the sun, and everyone else just orbited him. Sarah was a ghost. Quiet, pale, and seemed to float through rooms. When Mark was hosting his endless parade of friends, she would be the one refilling chip bowls and clearing empty bottles, a silent servant in her own home. And I heard things. Our houses were built in the 60s. The walls are thin. I'd be up late, and I'd hear their arguments. I heard the sharp, ugly cadence of Mark's voice, low and menacing, and Sarah's replies, always soft, pleading. Then came the other sounds. A dish shattering against a wall. A door slamming so hard my own picture frames would rattle. One time, I saw her at the mailbox, wearing sunglasses on a cloudy day. She thought I didn't notice the faint, purple bruise high on her cheekbone. She gave me a small, tight-lipped smile and hurried back inside. I did nothing. I told myself it wasn't my business. So I just kept watching and listening and feeling the acidic burn of guilt in the pit of my stomach. Then came that Tuesday night. The fight started, same as always. But this time, it was ferocious. I could hear Mark's voice, unhinged, and Sarah, not pleading anymore, but crying. I stood in my own dark kitchen, my hand on the phone, my thumb hovering over 911. Then came a sharp, piercing scream from Sarah, cut off abruptly. It was followed by a heavy, sickening thud. And then, silence. It was the most terrifying sound I had ever heard. It pressed in on me from all sides. I stood there for what felt like an hour, frozen, but there was nothing. Just that heavy, suffocating silence. I didn't call the police. The coward in me won. I told myself I'd imagined it. I went to bed, but I didn't sleep, listening to the silence, and the guilt began to forge itself into certainty. The next morning, the world outside was deceptively normal. Mark was in his driveway, whistling a cheerful tune as he washed his oversized SUV. He saw me watching and gave me a big, friendly wave. "Morning, Alex. Great day." I felt a surge of nausea and stepped back from the window. Sarah was nowhere to be seen. By Saturday, my fear and guilt had curdled into a cold, burning obsession. Mark was hosting a barbecue. The entire neighborhood was on his back deck, laughing, drinking beer. I watched from my window as Mrs. Henderson from down the street asked him the question everyone was thinking. Mark's jovial mask melted away, replaced by a performance of quiet heartbreak. I could read his lips. She left me. He told them he'd woken up Wednesday morning, and she was just gone. They all bought it, but I knew better. I knew what that thud in the night was. She hadn't left him. He had gotten rid of her. That's when the writer in me, the observer, died, and the vigilante was born. My investigation started with a pair of high-powered binoculars and a small black notebook. My office became an observation post. I documented his every move. 7:14 a.m. Takes out trash. Only one bag. Odd. 3:20 p.m. Spends 2 hours meticulously weeding the rose bushes near the back fence. My blood ran cold. Was she there? I started going out late at night, sifting through his trash cans, looking for anything. Bloody rags, a piece of her clothing. But he was smart. He was clean. The obsession consumed me. A week later, I got my chance. Mark packed his SUV with fishing gear and told a neighbor he was heading to the lake for the weekend. That night, under the cover of darkness, I took a lock-picking kit I'd bought online and crept over to his back door. The lock clicked open. I slipped inside. The house was dark and cold, thick with the scent of bleach and air freshener. It was unervingly clean, sanitized. I moved through the rooms with a small flashlight, looking for signs of a struggle. A dent in the drywall, a new patch of paint, a dark stain on the hardwood floors. Nothing. My panic started to rise. What if I was wrong? I wasn't crazy. I knew what I heard. I rushed upstairs, tearing through closets, rifling through drawers, feeling more desperate by the second. I was about to give up when my foot caught on the edge of the rug in the guest room. As I stumbled, I noticed it. A single floorboard that wasn't quite flush with the others. I dropped to my knees and pried it up. Underneath, in the dark space, was a small object wrapped in a dish towel. My hands were shaking as I slowly unwrapped it. It was a claw hammer. The head was dark with a rusty, brownish stain. Dried blood. I had found it. The murder weapon. A wave of grim vindication washed over me. I had him. Then I heard a sound that made my heart stop. A key in the front lock. It wasn't Mark's SUV. It was a taxi. He came back early. No, the footsteps were too light. A figure appeared in the doorway of the guest room. It was Sarah. She was alive. She looked strong. She looked at me, then at the hammer in my hand. She didn't scream. She didn't look scared. She smiled. A slow, cold, calculating smile. "I knew you'd find it," she said, her voice calm and steady. I was counting on it. You were right, Alex. There was a murder in this house on Tuesday night. You heard it all. You just got the names wrong. She took a step into the room. I couldn't take it anymore. That night, I hit him. And I kept hitting him until he stopped moving. He's in the attic crawl space, wrapped in a tarp. The pieces started to click into place, forming a picture of such perfect, malevolent genius that I felt all the air leave my lungs. And then I saw you, she continued, watching, always watching, writing in your little black book, going through our trash. You were the perfect solution to my problem. The obsessed neighbor, the weirdo writer who had a grudge against the popular guy on the block. All I had to do was wait for you to do exactly this, to break in, to find the weapon I left for you, to give the police a motive, a suspect, and a murder weapon, all tied up in a neat little bow. Her face suddenly changed. The cold confidence vanished, replaced by a mask of pure terror. She opened her mouth and began to scream, a blood-curdling, hysterical sound. Help! Somebody help me! He's in my house. He killed my husband. He's got the hammer. It was the most brilliant acting I had ever seen. I was frozen, paralyzed. I dropped the hammer, and it clattered loudly on the floor. I could hear doors slamming open outside, voices shouting, phones being dialed. The whole neighborhood was running towards her screams. I looked at Sarah. She was crying now, real tears streaming down her face as she pointed a trembling finger at me. And through her sobs, she whispered 2 words, so quietly that only I could hear them. Thank you. The first siren began to wail in the distance, growing closer. I was trapped. I was the crazy neighbor, the obsessive writer, the man holding the bloody hammer. The last thing I saw before the police burst through the door was Sarah's face, a perfect portrait of a terrified, grieving widow, a masterpiece of a lie. And the first, the good neighbor, was her finest creation. Estrangement is a funny thing. It's not a clean break, but a slow fade, like a photograph left in the sun until you're left with just a vague outline of a person you used to know. That was my grandmother, Eleanor. In my memory, she was just a ghost, a collection of my mother's sad stories. When she died at 87, the only thing she left me was a remote, dilapidated farmhouse. The plan was simple: clean it out, sell it, and use the money for a down payment on a city apartment. The drive out there was like traveling back in time. The house slumped against the gray sky, paint peeling like sunburned skin. The inside smelled of dust, mothballs, and something else. Something earthy and damp, like a freshly dug grave. It was in her bedroom that I found the journals. A dozen black, leather-bound books filled with her spidery handwriting. At first, the entries were normal, but as the years went on, they became strange, fearful. She started writing about something she called the man in the soil, or old groundskeeper. I could almost hear her frail, old voice reading the words aloud. October 12th, 1978. The rains have been heavy. The ground is soft. I can feel him stirring. He does not like the earth to be disturbed. It went on like that for years. May 3rd, 1985. The fence by the woods needs mending, but I dare not dig new post holes. The groundskeeper is a jealous landlord. He guards his domain. It was the sad story of a woman's mind unraveling, her isolation breeding phantoms in the dirt. I put the journals in a box and tried to forget about them. My project for the week was to tackle the overgrown front garden. I spent a whole afternoon out there with a shovel and a pickaxe, wrestling with the stubborn soil. By sunset, I was exhausted. I left the tools lying in the freshly turned earth and went inside. That night, I was woken by a faint scratching sound from downstairs. I dismissed it as a raccoon and fell back asleep. The next morning, the tools were gone from the garden. I found them on the front porch, leaned neatly against the wall, cleaned of all dirt. I knew I hadn't done that, but maybe I was more tired than I thought. A few days later, the strangeness continued. I came downstairs to find a thin trail of dark, rich soil on the kitchen floor. It started at the back door, which was bolted shut from the inside, and ended right at the cellar door in the pantry. The scratching sound came back that night, louder this time, coming from beneath the floorboards. It sounded like someone was digging. My mind went back to the journals, to the cellar door. It was secured with a huge ancient padlock, rusted solid. Curiosity and dread got the better of me. I got the crowbar from my car and broke the lock. A wave of cool, musty air washed over me. I pointed my phone's flashlight down the steep stone steps into blackness. The cellar was small, with stone walls and shelves, but the far wall wasn't stone. It was just packed earth. And carved into the center of that dirt wall was a tunnel, just large enough for a person to crawl through. This wasn't a raccoon. Someone had been living here. Against my better judgment, I got on my hands and knees and crawled into the tunnel. It opened up into a small hand-dug chamber. In it were the remnants of a hidden life, empty cans of preserved food, a bucket for waste, a ragged mattress, and on a crate, a collection of objects arranged like trophies, a child's worn teddy bear, a silver locket, a man's cracked watch. I scrambled backwards out of the tunnel, gasping for air. I was about to run, to call the police, when my flashlight beam caught a loose brick in the cellar's fireplace hearth. I pulled it out. Inside was a small tin box. It contained a yellowed newspaper clipping from November 5th, 1975. The headline read, "Local man vanishes after suspected burglary at remote farmhouse." The article detailed the disappearance of a thief named Jacob Miller, last seen near the property. My grandfather, Thomas, was quoted saying he'd fired a warning shot and the man had run off. Under the clipping was a letter, a confession from my grandfather to my grandmother. His voice seemed to echo in the damp cellar. "My dearest Eleanor, Miller didn't run. He came into the house. What you did. You were defending yourself. I put him in the ground. In the garden. But I can't leave him. I have to stay. I have to guard the ground. I will be your groundskeeper." The world spun. The man in the soil wasn't a phantom. It was my grandfather. He had faked his own disappearance and had gone to live in the earth, spending 50 years guarding a grave just a few feet beneath his wife's feet. As the full, horrifying truth dawned on me, I heard a sound from above. The heavy cellar door slammed shut with a loud bang, and the metallic sound of a bolt slid into place. I was plunged into absolute darkness. I screamed, throwing my weight against the door, but it didn't budge. Then I heard a voice from the other side, ancient and dry like autumn leaves. A whisper that scraped through the wood. "You broke the ground. You dug in the garden. You disturbed his rest." I choked out his name. "Grandfather? It's me. It's Ethan, your grandson." But the voice that answered wasn't my grandfather's. The groundskeeper requires stillness, it rasped. The soil demands a price for what is taken. It demands a debt. He wasn't a man anymore. He was a feral creature who knew nothing but his half-century-long vigil. I wasn't family. I was a threat. And then I heard it again, the scratching. But it wasn't coming from the tunnel. It was coming from the other side of the packed earth wall of the cellar itself. He was digging a new tunnel. He wasn't going to let me out. He was coming to let himself in. I am trapped here, in the dark, in the cold, listening to the sound of my own grandfather digging his way through the earth to get to me. I don't know what he'll do when he breaks through, but I see the collection of trophies in my mind, the locket, the watch. I know he is not coming to welcome me to the family. He's coming to make me a permanent part of his collection, to bury me in the silence, to make me another secret kept by the soil of my inheritance. The scratching is getting closer, and that's all for tonight. Remember, the most terrifying monsters are the ones that look just like us, the ones who might even live right next door. If these stories serve as a good reminder to trust your instincts, then show your support and like and subscribe. Hitting that bell means you'll get a warning before the next nightmare begins. Sleep well, if you can.